Hello and welcome back to the She is Courageous podcast. Now, I am delighted to welcome to join me this week one of my guests, the lovely Anna from How About. And I want to do like a dot, dot, dot there. I'm going to let her tell you all about How About in a second. So, Anna lives out here in Dubai. We have met through actually How About. So, I'm definitely going to let you share your story in a second. Anna, thank you for joining me here on the podcast. It's an absolute delight to have you here. How
Yeah,
are we
really good,
today?
thank you. Just doing everything I can to avoid the heat. I swear it's gone hotter in like the last few days. Like I walked
Yeah.
to the gym this morning, I was like, I can't actually breathe right now.
Do you know what? My husband said the same. My
Yeah.
husband wears
Oh no.
glasses. And so he's in that phase now where he steps out the front door and he's condensation, he can't see. And it's one of those things like I
Mm.
don't wear glasses all the time. You really, for, I guess you don't think about the challenges we face. But yes, to those listening around the world, this is being recorded on, I think it's the 21st of July today. So we have, I know that I spend a lot of time very smug for my blue skies, but we are in our not so nice piece, aren't we, at the moment? It is really humid, really, it's literally condensation. My handbag was condensating the other day. I could feel it getting
It's
like
just not fun, isn't it?
moist.
You know, I think you feel smug when you're here in January and you're just like sitting by the pool and everyone back in the UK is just, it's just snowing. But right now it's not much
Yeah.
fun.
No, it's not. We've literally just before we came on, or just before I pressed record, we were
Mm.
talking about indoor activities as well, because that's the order of the day, isn't it? Trying to find things to do indoors. And as all of my listeners will know, I don't have children, Anna doesn't either. So we were discussing how there's not enough adult-only kid type stuff because I don't want to go where the kids are, but I would potentially be swayed to take part in some of the activities. So yeah, we're all about the indoor activities right now. Anyway, we could talk about that for the entire podcast, but let's get on track, Shelley. So, welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we get into anything, I would love you to share a bit about your story. So, here's the way I'd love to ask you, if that's okay. I'd love you to tell the listeners who you are, but in the sense of kind of who were you and who are you now? Tell us your story, if you like. Now, it's not a CV, it's not an interview. I promise you can tell us whatever you want, but just give us a little bit of a run through of kind of where you
Sure.
started and
So
where you
I
are
came
now.
out to buy nearly 4 years ago, which has gone so fast. And like everyone says, I came out here for two
Mm.
years. Wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I'm still I'll be here for 10 years, I'm sure now. I just love living here. I feel like there's so much to do. Maybe not now. And it's just a really great place. It's great to be somewhere where, you've got blue skies every day, you've got sunshine, you've got a pool in your apartment. It's brilliant. And I actually came over here as a teacher. So I came over here, I was in my 10th year of teaching. I was kind of done with teaching. I was kind of thinking, I want to do something new. I want to see what's out there. Um, and I came out here, and I don't know, if you know any teachers out here, but it's hard. It's really long hours, much longer than the UK. In the UK, I was kind of getting in for 9 and, leaving at 4:30, 5. Here, you kind of get in for like before 7 a.m. sometimes. And I'm not a morning person, so I didn't really enjoy that. And, I was in a school that was very new. I was kind of running a big department, and I just thought, like, what else is out there? And I think in my first year of Dubai, I kept meeting people who had their own businesses out here, much more so than in the UK. And I was like, okay, this seems like a really good place to open a business. But like a lot of people, I was like, well, what would I do? What kind of business would I open? And I kind of had lots and lots of ideas kind of floating around, and I was kind of trying to put them into action and thinking, actually, this wouldn't work. And something that I really notice is it can be really hard to meet new people out here and meet your people, your tribe. I think sometimes you can move out here and
Yeah.
you can get like the perfect job, you've got the perfect apartment, you're like, great, I live in Dubai now. But actually, what's next? How do you meet those people that kind of feel like family? Because I think in Dubai, your friends often become your family. Um, and you often don't
Yeah.
have your family around you. So, in times of need, you just need these people to be with you. So it's kind of thinking something along those lines, but also just to give people an opportunity to kind of try new things in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. We kind of in Abu Dhabi for some events as well. And I think sometimes it can feel like when you first get to Dubai, all there is to do is kind of like brunches and malls and like coffee, all of those things. And actually, there's so much more. There's like an absolutely incredible
So much
wellness
more.
scene. There's so many, events and activities that are popping up all the time. And I just wanted to give people kind of an opportunity to try those. So that's where the kind of idea of How About came from. So actually, one of my best friends at home came up with a name. I had like a load of different names, and she works in advertising. And she was like, "Why don't you just call it How About?" And then you can say How About, and then different activities after that. So that's kind of where the idea was born. And I started it in, I think it was September of 2022, so nearly 3 years ago now, and then left teaching about
Right.
2 years ago, and it's just kind of grown since then. So we've kind of got, events, we've got a membership where people can kind of get to know other members a little bit better. And then we're also building an app at the moment, which will be ready hopefully in the next month, which will be more than just events, but it'll be kind of like, things to do in Dubai, restaurants, cafes, all of that kind of stuff as well.
Wow.
Mm.
So I met
Yes.
you through How About, as I said, and it's a brilliant concept. It's really interesting because I've often wondered and keep meaning to ask you, where did the name come from? Now I know. Um, so a few things to unpack. Let's go back a few steps. So
Mhm.
teaching in the UK, and as you said, teaching in the UK versus teaching in Dubai. I think teachers get
Yes.
a bad rap. Okay, like we all kind of go, you part timers, you rock up at 9, you get all these weeks off. And for context for anybody, it's all
Mm.
private schools here in Dubai as well, isn't it? So that throws a whole other layer to things. Now, we're not going to go down that route, but I guess what I'm keen to kind of explore with you are a few elements. So the move, you've said it yourself, the move from the UK to Dubai, it's a tough gig. I'm an expat too. I've been here for 2 years. It's an absolute minefield out here. And lots more people than I realise come here not
Mhm.
knowing anybody. And yet, and I don't know if your experience was the same, I felt like everybody knew everybody and I was trying to knock on doors to kind of get in. So I guess I, like, before How
Mm.
About came around, let's just talk about kind of the mindset, if you like, and the shift you had to go through, and maybe even a bit of, if you went back now and did it again, what would you do differently in that transition from UK, Dubai? Did you know anybody when you came
No, I
to the
had a few
country?
people that I knew kind of vaguely, but no one that I knew really enough to, ask advice or meet up for coffee with. Um, and I think I was in a very lucky position that when you're a teacher, you do just get to meet a lot of other teachers in the same boat as you. And
Yeah.
I met one of my best friends over here. We started at the same time. So we met on the first day. We were the same age. Um, and that was really, really great. And, I got to meet kind of most of my friends initially through teaching. But the thing is about Dubai is that it's such a transitional city that a lot of my friends then moved home after a year, 2 years. And then you're like, I have to make new friends. I'm like, oh, I
Right.
don't want to do this.
Do you know, now that's
Yeah.
really interesting you say that because so
Mm.
I'm only 2 years in. I have had that very conversation with someone who has
Mm.
been here for a few years. And the way that the conversation unfolded was kind of her saying, "Look, I've been
Mm.
here for a good few years, and you just nailed it." She said, I almost feel like I'm not prepared to invest until I know
Yes.
you're in for the long haul. And I was like, that's really tough coming in from the outside because my intention right now, and I know you said actually
Mm.
you came here for 2 years and now that is a common line, isn't it? But actually it's
Mm.
really tough, isn't it, to kind of navigate that. Now you've experienced it, but equally you are kind of yourself saying
Mm.
lots of people have moved on and it puts you now again, that's one of the
Mm.
beauties of How About, right? That is one of the many things that you offer. And I guess so my experience coming into the country, I guess for context, now let me ask a different question if I could. Would you describe How About as networking?
No, no, I wouldn't. Because in my head, networking is a little bit more business related. We do have business events. We have kind of events for, entrepreneurs and small businesses, but I feel like it's a bit more casual than that. It's not kind of, go into a room and, hand your business card out to 20 people and look for a job. It's just a really relaxed way to meet new people. And I, yeah.
Yeah. And
And I think
sorry.
that when people come
Please.
into events, events like Speed Friending, and I kind of we have also this event called matched breakfast and dinners, which Shelley you signed up for, which amazing,
I have.
which we have a big group of people who come in, and they may not know anyone, and they've really kind of like put themselves out there to meet new people, and you see people coming in quite nervous, and they walk out and they go, okay, I love that, and they kind of make their new friends through the group, and it's I think it's that everyone's very intentional about wanting to make friends through the group. They're not here pretending it's a kind of business networking event, but it's actually something different. People are there because they're looking to meet new people in Dubai, which I think makes it much easier for people to kind of, exchange numbers, meet up and make friends afterwards.
And I think
Mm.
that's what I love about it, and I, have done since I first discovered it. That coming from the UK,
Yeah.
networking is all about business, and you've said that. But here, the term
Mm.
networking gets used a lot across both business and social networking because, of course, there are so many of us on
Mm.
very similar journeys. We've come from a home country, we don't know people here. Some of us have businesses that we are trying to grow, but equally, I mean, like yourself, I came here and the only person I knew was my husband. And so, I needed to find friends. My friends were cracking on with life
Mm.
without me back in the UK. So yeah, it's just really interesting. I also think, to your point, it is quite nervy.
Mm.
It can feel quite. It's not intimidating. That's definitely not the word I felt. I appreciate some might, but it can feel
Mm.
quite scary to step into these rooms. Now, obviously, this is the She is Courageous podcast, so I'm all
Mm.
about how do we embrace that and flip that to courage. But aside from that, now let's ask you some questions around your own courage, because not only have you left the UK and come to Dubai, but you were a teacher, you came here as a teacher, and then you've started a business, you've grown that in the background, and you've left teaching and gone all in. I'd love for you to share some, I guess, that journey, that transition, what what's been what you've expected, what's been really challenging, your own mindset shifts you've had to make. How have you found the transition from the safety and security of an employed role into the joy of self-employment?
Do you know, actually, it was a lot harder than I expected. But I felt that's put me in a much better place now. I've got a much stronger mindset kind of developed from it. Um, so I was, like I said, just so ready to leave teaching. I'd done it for 10 years. I'd kind of got everything I'd say had of it, and I just didn't feel passionate about it anymore. So then when I kind of started Habit, I was like, I love doing this. I want to kind of take it full time. And then it was that transition period. So it was around two years ago this time where I did it and I was like, okay, I don't have the safety of getting paid every month or a job or that's like a kind of security. And it was really difficult. I actually felt quite lonely with it because a lot of my friends were in employment where they're working kind of 9 to 5 or longer if you're a teacher. And I didn't have a lot of friends who kind of ran their own businesses. So I was like, actually, I'm kind of working for myself, kind of sitting at home and working at cafes every day. But I don't have that many people to kind of talk to you about what I'm doing right now. So it was a big transition period for me. And luckily now I've kind of met, quite a lot of people who are in a similar position. And that's been so invaluable. And then actually a few months after I kind of went, self-employed, I ruptured my Achilles and I ended up in a really big cast for basically 6 months. Um, so it was
Oh,
really
wow.
hard to run my business because I was trying to kind of, get down to events, but it's really hard when you're in a cast and, taxis and everything. So do you know what? That first 6 to 9 months of self employment was really tough. And I had a very different idea of how it would be. I saw myself like at a beach club every day, maybe like calling my PA, telling them to do some tasks, answering a few emails, and then having loads of money. It's not like that. I'm not so naive.
Oh, dearie
But-
me. Anyone listening, can we just I almost feel like I want to repeat that. Now, this is not just a Dubai vision either, is it? Let's be honest. We see this plastered over the socials right now, more so, I
Mhm.
think, here. We get, I often say to people, the streets are
Mhm.
not paved with gold, people. That's not how Dubai works. We don't all spend our days lunching at the beach clubs. We're all working at home in air conditioned houses because it's too damn hot outside. But I do think, like, so often, and I'd love to know, I don't want to plant the seed, but I guess I'd almost love to know if you went through this. Yes, it was hard, okay, and you're clearly still here, but I see women all the time who almost create this expectation for themselves that it won't be that hard, or not necessarily that it won't be that hard, but it will be like this, like I see. And if it's not, then I'm failing. If I'm not achieving that, then I'm failing. Did you ever experience that, feel that? Did you question whether
Yeah,
you'd made
I've
the right
questioned it
decision?
loads and loads of times, especially I think in my first year, year and a half, because I wasn't where I wanted to be. I think I'd had this idea of this is where I'll be by 6 months, a year's time. And then you don't get there and you're like, oh, I failed. But actually, and I think we talked about this the other day. You mentioned a book that you'd read, which I can't remember what it's called now. But it's saying actually, if I look back to myself a year ago, 2 years ago, I have grown so much. My business has progressed so much. And I'm giving myself, well, not so much now, but I was giving myself such a hard time about that. Because actually, I saw a quote recently where it was like, would you want to
Mm.
trade places with yourselves like a year or two ago? And I'd be like, absolutely not. I'm so happy where I am right now.
What a brilliant question. Oh, I love
Mm.
that. Is such a great question. I do recall, so I've just written down. So the book, anyone that listens to me regularly will giggle right now because I'm banging on about this book because I reread it
Yes.
because it's The Gap and the Gain. And it's exactly that. It's all about measuring backwards because, like you said, I think there's two things that go on. And actually, you said kind of that 6 months point. You had this idea of where you would be and you weren't. And I guess my question there is, in hindsight, do you think you set the bar too high? And what maybe drove that? In fact, that's it. There's not two questions. Let me just ask that question first. So, that piece, that moment of 6 months where you weren't where you thought you would be. Now you can see, and you can see now how far you've come. But I guess that piece around, if you're really honest now, do you think you'd set a really
Yeah,
high bar at six
100%.
months?
And I think that was going from employment to self-employment. I think as a teacher, I worked really hard. I kind of climbed the ladder. And if you work hard, you kind of get rewarded for it. Whereas if you work hard running your own
Mm,
business, it doesn't always pay off. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to pivot and you have to fail. I think it's so important to fail as a business owner
yeah.
and have that growth mindset. But when you first do it, you're like, oh, I failed, that's it. It's a really, really different mindset to being in employment. So I think, yeah, just keep my mindset.
It's so tough. Yeah, and
Mm.
it's back to this piece. I mean, I get right on my high horse, so I'll try not to. But there's so much narrative around us suggesting where we should be that I think, firstly, is unrealistic. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen for some people,
Mm.
but it's the minority, not the main group. That second of all, I think half of it's BS. I actually think most people that are telling you that you should be there in six
Yeah.
months have taken 10 years to get there themselves. I remember very similarly in my first year. Now I started my business in COVID. We won't even talk about that because that threw a slight little, not expected in it. But I remember very similarly 6 to 9 months being like, God, I'm not making anywhere near enough money. I'd come from a six-figure salary, and it was. I don't think I expected to be at six figures, but I was
Mhm.
putting pressure on myself to get back to my corporate salary. And then I had this moment of realization where I was in my corporate
Mm.
career for 25 years. It took me 25 years to get to where I got. And if I only measured myself on salary, it took me 25 years to get to that number, let alone everything else that came with that. And yet there was this narrative around me of six figure years. And when you kind of go, I've been in this for 6 months versus 25 years, that moment of perspective changed everything. Now, I don't want to wait 25 years, let me be very clear. But I think there is a bit where we have to have a
Mhm.
sense of reality as well, and there's too much skewed out there. And yeah, yeah. Um,
Yes.
so you are still here, a couple of years later. Very pleased. There was a moment in there as well, and I was pondering how do I word this. So forgive me if this comes across incorrectly, but it was interesting listening to you talk about. I
Mm.
felt really quite lonely. I'd gone from teaching, I was starting my business. I felt quite lonely, and there was a moment I started thinking about almost a slight irony. Your business is about bringing people together. Your whole mission is
Mm.
how about come to this, how about come and meet people here, but you were feeling quite lonely. And I guess I find that quite interesting that you're creating something for everybody else, but perhaps you weren't getting what you needed or weren't able to get it from the business yourself and weren't able to get it around you. I don't know if there's a question in that at all. It's an
Yeah,
observation as much as
I
anything.
think I just didn't realize because I had the same number of friends. I still had the same social life, but it was that place where I didn't really know anyone who was on the same journey as me. So then I was like, okay, you can talk
Yeah.
to your friends about your employment, but it's different. Um, And that's why I think with how about, so I think we're mostly women kind of in their 30s and 40s. And I find like it's often people that are going through a transition period that join the group. So it could be, all of my friends have moved home. It could be all of my friends have had children. And it's not for me or it's not for me right now. Um, we get a lot of people who are kind of moving from, being in employment to self-employment. So I feel like people are on this kind of growth journey where something shifted in their life and they have to make a change. So actually,
Mm,
they're looking to meet new people in a kind of similar circle to them.
yeah. It's interesting. I did an episode recently. It was called The Friendship Gap, and it was about how, friendships evolve. And sometimes I went through a very similar transition when I left corporate, 25 years in the corporate space. I didn't know anyone that ran their own business. And I remember thinking, well, I can't ring my friends. They're busy. Like I might not have a lot going on right now, but they're really busy because I know how tough corporate world is, and they don't get it. I love my husband dearly, but he's still in the corporate space. He doesn't always get it either. We have to find our people. And I think we also have to, and I think this comes at this stage of life, we need to find new people, but we also have to be okay with letting go
Yes.
of some people too. And that can be really difficult. Yeah, interesting. What not what's the hardest thing? Because we can talk about the practicalities of running business, but
Mm.
loneliness. What what's been, I guess, what's been the biggest fear you've had to face into since starting a business?
No, I think it's been really internal. So I think it's, if this doesn't work, this relates back to me and who I am. And that's been the biggest hurdle to jump over. And I definitely got to a point, especially kind of maybe late last year, early this year, where I was too tied up in my business. It was like, and you need to separate them.
Right.
You are different to who your business is. But I think when you're spending, like 12, 14 hours a day sometimes on it, it gets too entangled. So it's like, who am I without my business? Who did I used to be? That kind of thing. So actually separating it and separating myself and trying to do things that aren't just, working on it 24/7 has been really, really powerful.
Who are you without your business, if you don't
Gosh,
mind
that's
me
a
asking?
question. Um, do you know what? I've really tried to find myself a little bit in the last few months. I went through a stage of having quite bad burnout. Um, that was I think kind of self-inflicted. I think that I was almost like if I'm not working then I'm not, pushing the needle, but actually a lot of it was just busy work. So I kind of almost brought it on myself, and actually my friends noticed before I did that I was not doing too well on myself, which is amazing
Oh,
because I just
wow.
didn't notice it. I was like, what's wrong with me? And I just tried to kind of do the things I love again. So I've kind of, got much more back into exercising, cooking, eating well. And actually, before I kind of went full time in the business, I used to love traveling. And being a teacher, we do get amazing holidays. And like every holiday, I was like, exploring a new place in the world. So that's what I really want to do again from the autumn. And I've always been like a really
Oh.
big fan of solo travel. So kind of like, right, I've got a week off here. Let me find this location. Let me just explore. And I think I just lost that part of myself a little bit. Mm.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I know we were talking about this before we press record. Like every business owner listening will resonate with this. There is always something we can be doing. There is always more on the list. There is always something we think we should be doing because ultimately, I don't think there's ever an end point with businesses. I mean, what I mean by that is I don't mean there's not an end point for people. I think with
Mhm.
businesses there's always more you could be doing. And you go from structure and teams and people doing stuff for you to having to do it all yourself. And that burnout that you described there, I think so
Mm.
many could resonate with it. And I think the other part is, of course, like it is your business. I was having this conversation with a guy, I feel like I was having this conversation with someone recently where she was talking about, I'm trying not to take it personally. And I said, it might just be a bit about like some of the words. Like, we are going to take it personally because you put so much in. It's your business. No one's going to love your
Mhm.
business the way you do. And actually, I'd be more worried if you didn't take it personally. But you taking it personally doesn't mean it is personal, and they're different. And yes, we do need to remember we are
Mhm.
not our businesses. Our businesses are a huge part of us, but we are not our businesses. And again, it's just flipping that. in the other direction. It's so important to have all those things. But the holidays piece is really interesting. Firstly, I love that you are going to grab, but it's almost like when you're in an employed role, you know you've
Mhm.
got a certain amount of holiday, and therefore you kind of
Yeah,
have to take it, right? Whereas there's no one saying if you don't book this, you're not going to get it, and before you know it, you haven't taken a break, you haven't stopped. So yeah, just so many things that we have to really
yeah.
think differently about, and there isn't someone reminding us to think
Or if there
differently
is, we
about
don't
it.
listen to them, I found. My friends are always like, you need to take a break. And I'm like, no, no.
Well, because then, of course, what we're
Yeah.
trying to do is still grow things, make
Mhm.
more, do more, get to where we're trying to get to at a rate of knots, throw in
Mhm.
the noise all around us that's, often subconsciously saying we're not doing
Mhm.
enough because look what they're doing. It's a bit of a vicious circle. I'm going to ask, let's go on a tangent for a
Mhm.
second. So, traveling, let's do it. So, solo travel, now that
Yeah.
takes courage. Have you always enjoyed solo traveling?
Yeah, I've been traveling since I was 22, so quite a long time ago now. Um, and even now, so I would
Wow.
say I probably do most holidays now where I go with friends, but I'll take a few days before or after the holiday to have my own time. And I absolutely love it. So I'll kind of, choose a hotel that I love, just explore new restaurants and just go for walks. And I actually find like, my business, I had to come up with a lot of ideas. It takes a lot of creativity. And that's where my best ideas come from when I'm by myself, when I'm doing something I love. And I'm like, take a notebook with me and like, write this idea down. So I just love it. I think I don't love it as much as when I was younger, where I used to kind of, like I'd take a month off and go by myself. But 5, 6 days is just perfect now.
And this is so out of my comfort zone. I'm not a solo traveler. Now, I think there's pieces in here that play out in
Mm.
terms of personalities, etc., etc. Now, everyone thinks I'm a massive extrovert. I'm actually borderline extrovert introvert. So I do have to absolutely refuel myself and be alone. But I'm not good at being on my own
Hmm.
for a length of time. So I would really struggle with solo travel. Have you, like, obviously since 22? If someone were really keen. Like they're listening to this and thinking, I'd love to do that, but I just don't feel brave enough, courageous enough. What would
I
you
would
say to them?
say just do it in small steps. So just maybe go to the city that you're in and take yourself out for the day. Get used to like eating in a restaurant by yourself. I think there's something really, really empowering about sitting there by yourself in a restaurant. Lovely meal, glass of wine, maybe a book if you need it. And I think that's just fantastic. So, take it in small steps. Don't expect like just to go 2 weeks by yourself. But yeah, start with the city you're in, then maybe do like a weekend break, book some activities so you're not always by yourself. And then actually, I think the whole introvert extrovert thing comes into play a bit because I would definitely describe myself as an introvert. Like I love socializing, but I
Mm,
recharge by myself. So actually, I love that time by myself. But
yeah,
if you're maybe more of an extroverted person, you want to solo travel, maybe kind of do activities where you're looking to meet people as well.
yeah. Great tips there. Honestly, I didn't expect that to come up at all, but it's just
Mm.
so interesting, isn't it? And I think it's one of those things that women, particularly, if I can be honest, and it is predominantly women that listen to the podcast, I think there's a lot of things that play in there. I think there's a bit about safety and
Mhm.
security, and there are obviously better places than others to go. And we're very fortunate we live in a
Mhm.
country where we barely think about that, right? Let's be honest. But I also think
Mhm.
we talk ourselves out of things. So in the typical mindset piece, we're very quick to kind of say, well, I'd love to be brave enough to solo travel. I mean, I'm doing it. That's my voice straight in my head when you were talking. Oh my god, I'd love to be brave enough to do that. Now, it's not that I'm not brave enough to do it. There's probably a bit of I don't really want to. I don't think I would enjoy it, but then I don't know because I've never
Mhm.
really given myself a chance. And I guarantee lots of people are listening, going, God, I'd love to do more of that. So great tip, thank you. Um, how do you keep going? I mean, it is like
Mhm.
let's just have an honest moment, right? It's tough running a business at the best of times. I don't buy into the
Mhm.
worries me. It's really tough in business right now, but it's tough in business right now
Absolutely.
for everybody in every industry. This is for 101 reasons, and I guess resilience
Mhm.
is the most critical factor right now. Now you've heard me talk about the
Mhm.
three P's: persistence, perseverance, and patience. They are fundamentally resilience. How do you keep going? Like, how do you keep going when it's feeling tough, when it's feeling heavy, when perhaps
Mhm.
business isn't as strong as you want, or if you're being triggered? I suppose there's actually two questions there, isn't there? Start with how do you keep going? Because my brain is like, I've got so many things I want to ask her. How do,
Do you know,
how
I
do you
just
go?
think to run a business, you have to have that grit. You have to have that perseverance to keep going when things are tough. And they're going to be tough. You're never going to have smooth sailing business. Things are going to happen all the time. And it's not like when you're in employment where you can turn to your boss and say, what do I do? There's no one really to turn to. So for me, I would say
No.
that running a business has always been such a passion for me that that kind of keeps me going. This is what I want to do. And in the times where it's late at night and I'm looking on LinkedIn thinking, oh, maybe I should just get a job. Actually, that's not what I want to do. And this is so much better than teaching. I enjoy it so much more. I would say for me, physical health is firstly super important. So I think whenever I'm going through a bit of a like burnout phase, I start ordering takeaways every night. I don't go to the gym. I don't do my steps.
Ah,
So just
yeah,
keeping that going. So making sure I'm not ordering from delivery every night, making sure I'm getting my steps and going to the gym. Also for that kind of social side of it, go to the gym this morning. It's nice you can chat to people. Whereas sometimes I was saying to
yeah,
this to another kind of entrepreneur the other day, like it's 3 days when you're busy and you haven't spoken to anyone apart from like someone at the supermarket, and it's it's difficult. um, I would say
yeah.
putting yourself out there, like still trying to be as sociable as possible. And when I was in teaching, I'd kind of, sometimes I'd shut the door and I'd be like, right, I'm not speaking to anyone else the rest of the day now I finished teaching. But you have to go out, you have to socialize, you have to kind of meet up with people, even when you're like, actually, I don't feel like socializing today, because otherwise you don't. And I think
Mm.
just the mindset is super, super important during those hard times. So just reminding yourself that if you're going through a low time in your business, it's not always going to be like that. And also, businesses don't need to go the way you expect them to. And I think right now I'm kind of trying to pivot my business a little bit, and I'm really, really excited for that. But that's not where thought it would go originally. So you have to be quite flexible with that as well.
That's such an important point. Interesting to hear. Excited, won't put you on the spot here, but you're so right. I think very often, we start out with one idea and we work so hard on it, and it may or
Mm.
may not go the way we want it to, but maybe another idea comes in, or we can see the market needs shifting. But actually, it's hard. It's that bit like the friendship piece. It's almost like you've got to let
Yes.
go of what you first planned. And sometimes people talk about, you almost have to. You're
Mm.
allowed to grieve for that. It's not going the way that you first thought the business model was going to go, and that all of this takes courage, okay? Because yes, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, but equally, it takes real courage to make the pivots, to make the changes. If it's working, if it's not working, if it's working, you've got to let go of something, and that's a risk. If it's not working, it's facing into what's not working. All of this takes massive
Mhm.
mindset shifts. It really does. Some great tips in there. Thank you. Where do you think you get your grit from?
Gosh, I don't know. I've always been really, really hardworking. And do you know what? I haven't just done teaching. I've kind of done so many jobs since I graduated. I've worked in sales, I've worked in marketing. And I've always really, really wanted to succeed. And do you know, I never felt 100% right in employment. I've never liked that getting up and going to sit in an office for someone else. It's always just been, it just hasn't quite worked for me, the person I am. So I think now I'm, running my own business, this is where I'm meant to be. And even if my business isn't quite where I want it to be yet, and that's due to putting unrealistic expectations, I know where I want it to be. And I know I'm going to, make it succeed in
Yeah.
whichever way possible.
Did you
Yes.
always want to run a business, or
Yeah.
you did? Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting,
Okay.
because I didn't. You see, that this was never part, not,
Yeah.
never part of my grand plan at all. If you had met me 10 years ago, I'd have laughed in your face if you said, 10 years time you'll be running a business. If you said you'd be living in Dubai, I'd be like, yeah, I'm up for that part, but not running a business. I thought I would get a corporate role that would get me traveling. So it's always really interesting, because I think so many, like my experience is that most entrepreneurs
Hmm.
have always wanted to. Now I'm doing it. I
Hmm.
can't imagine ever going back into the paid employed world, even though there are days when I'm typing out
We all
LinkedIn
do
thinking
it,
it'd be
don't we?
easier. But I can't actually imagine going back to that. Yeah, we do. We really do. Or yeah, even if I think sometimes it's just to remind myself
Yeah.
that I could if I wanted to.
Hmm.
Like I could do that job. So, but yeah, it's just really interesting to hear that you did
Hmm.
actually always want to do this. What's the bit that people don't see of Anna?
Gosh, I think that we live in a society now, especially in Dubai, where social media makes everything look very, very perfect. And I think this is very much true of my social Instagram and my business Instagram, where you only show the good things, don't you? And I,
Yeah,
of
yeah, a
course,
highlight reel.
and I talked to my cousin actually recently, and we were saying we were in a beach club. We had like a bottle of champagne, Caesar salad, truffle fries, like proper girl dinner type vibes, and putting on Instagram. And we were talking. We were saying like you don't show the parts where things are very hard. So I was saying how when I first started 1 month, I was kind of like trying to cut costs as much as possible and basically living off beans and toast. So we always talk about Instagram as being actually we don't see the beans on toast moments, and I think everyone's got them. You don't show
Yes,
the hard parts, um, and I think it's really hard to tell someone or speak when everyone's like, "Oh, it's so amazing you're running a business, you're doing so well," and then you almost don't want to kind of let them down, saying, "Actually, this was quite hard this month, or this is quite hard this month." So I think it's really difficult to actually share the full transparency of running a business sometimes.
I
Mm.
really appreciate you sharing that so honestly. I love the
Yeah,
term
it's
the
true.
beans on toast moments. We don't share those on it. You're
Mm.
so right. We don't, and I think too
Mm.
often we don't. It's really interesting as well, and I appreciate you so much for being so honest. That I think we're all a bit nervous about doing that. It's this it's how do we find our sweet spot, isn't it? We do share the highlight reels. We want to inspire. We
Mm.
want to show people, like, you should come along with me on this journey because it's all great. But equally, we want to keep it real. And I know that you and I, one of the reasons we've connected is because we are really authentic. We don't live the truly glamorous, like, I mean, you're much more glamorous than me, Anna, but we don't live
Mm.
the bling Dubai life, do we, on a daily basis? We live in Dubai. We all
Mm.
get to play that a little bit. But you're so right. I don't think we do share enough of that. And I'm not saying we should all be airing our
Mm.
dirty laundry, but I guess it's that piece that what really stops us. What really stops you sharing your beans on toast moments? And maybe don't answer that. I'm not going to start coaching you on the spot, Hannah. Don't worry. But I think you're right, and I
Mm.
throw that to everyone. I think we're moving into a time when people do want that authenticity. I think people are increasingly jaded by the highlight reel, and actually we have more awareness than we've ever had because we've talked about it as well today of the highlight reels are feeding the self-doubt. We're looking at what others are doing on those highlight reels and then telling ourselves we're not good enough. But, and I say this sometimes on my own socials, I'm part of the problem. I do the
Mm.
same. I do try and keep it real, but I don't very often. I've had the beans on toast moments, not for a while, I'm pleased to
Yeah,
say, but we've all been there. We've all been there. And I think we could all learn from each other and trust ourselves, but also support each other to
yeah.
share some more of that maybe. So, okay, so I would love to start to kind of round this off. I'd love to ask you, if I may, what does the future look like for Anna, and how about? Only as much as you're willing to share, but give us a
Do you know
teaser.
what? It's in a really, really exciting place. So we are building this app at the moment. I say we, I'm not doing anything. So I've got developers building it. I don't know how to build an app, which is going to be, I think, much more than just events. And I'm really, really excited to see where that's going. We've got kind of some partnerships coming up, and I just feel like it's going to be in a slightly different place, but a really exciting place as well. We're also launching corporate wellness. So we're in talks with a few businesses at the moment. And do you know what? Wellness is huge for me. I love like all of our wellness events. Um, and also, I think wellness has become a bit of a buzzword, especially in Dubai. And it could be like you need to get up at
Yes.
5 a.m. and then do an ice bath and then not eat any chocolate. And actually, I think wellness is all about balance. So I'm trying to kind of share that message that wellness is about balance to a wider audience. So obviously we've got the corporate wellness, but also I'm looking at how I can do that more as well. So it's kind of an idea of information, but it's not quite there yet. So we're kind of really pivoting the business in a few different directions, keeping the basics, keeping the try new things, meet new people, but also just I'm really really excited about what the future holds for How About.
Brilliant, brilliant. What does courage mean to you right now, then, with all this
Mhm.
exciting stuff on the horizon? What does courage mean for Anna right here, right now,
Do
and
you know
as we
what? I
move
just
forward?
think it is showing up every day. And even those days where you don't feel like it, where you're like, oh, what am I doing? I can't be bothered. Um, and just putting the work in, and being true to yourself. Being authentic, I think, is super important. Actually, I had a friend from home who got in touch recently, and she's just launched her own events business. And she was like, "Oh, I just got so inspired by you and what you're doing." I was like, "Oh, that's amazing! I didn't think anyone would think that." And she was just saying that
Oh, wow.
she's had like, well, I guess it a bit of imposter syndrome for the past year of not wanting to try it. And I'm like, you should have done this a long time ago. And it's weird that I think we all sometimes have this imposter syndrome, and I think especially as women, where we're not good enough, we can't do it. But I think maybe helping other people to kind of reach their goals as well, supporting people.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know what? I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all
Mm.
experiencing the same challenges, the same mindset wobbles. We're all questioning ourselves and telling ourselves we can't. And, it's what She is Courageous is all about. It's what the She is Courageous Collective is all about. It's what How About is all about. It's community. It's like-minded people. It's supporting one another. It's showing ourselves and each other. I live by the
Mhm.
mantra, if I can, you can. And I'm just a normal girl from Essex in the UK, and I'm literally living a life I once dreamed of. And God, I've still got goals I want to achieve. And I know you feel the same about what you're up to. And I'm so excited for what How About brings. But yeah, that's showing up every day. And I think it's the showing up for yourself
Mhm.
every day, isn't it? That's really courageous. Um, okay, so my final question is what would be, and I know you've potentially answered this in various ways, but I'm going to round it off with what would be your one piece of advice to anybody listening?
Um, it sounds cheesy, but I would say follow your dreams. For too long, I was in a position where I had a well-paid job in a school, and I was kind of doing what I love, but I was actually really, really bored. And I read a lot about it. I asked a lot of advice, and everyone was like, "It's fine. You don't have to love your job." And actually, for me, you do. I had to love what I do. I have to get up every day and love what I do. So I just say, whatever your dreams are, give it a go, and don't be scared. Actually, I've just got one more piece of advice that a friend of mine who's in business told me, and he said, jump and work out how to open the parachute on the way down. There's never going to be a
On the
perfect
way
time
down.
to do what you want to do, whether that's starting a business, whether that's launching a new career. But sometimes you just have to jump and see what happens.
Oh, he's so right. I mean, that start before you're ready. I see so many people putting
Mhm.
off because they think they're not ready, not good enough, not sure how to. Absolutely. I mean, I agree completely and utterly in alignment with both pieces of advice you've just given there. Yeah, start before you're ready. 100%. It's yeah, and follow your dreams. I love that. I don't think it is cheesy, and it's interesting. Do I think you have to have a job you love? I think that's
Mhm.
the best place to be. If you haven't got a job you love, then
Yeah.
please have something in
Mhm.
your life that you love. Yeah, and I think that's the bit, isn't it? Like if your dream is to do this, I'm always also really practical and realistic with people. And I'm like, yes, jump and the net will appear, but there
Yeah.
are some things you might want to do before you make the jump. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
procrastinate for the next God knows how long. Yeah, there's a sweet spot on all of this, but definitely start before you're ready, but there are things you can do to be ready to start before
Yeah,
you're ready. If that makes any
100%.
sense to you.
Yeah.
So I'm totally with you. I'm always I say to my clients, so I'm not going to
Mhm.
tell you to leave your job because you need to be in the right place for you to do that, whatever that means for you. And that's the other part. Like, I think the number one piece is everyone has to work out what
Mhm.
is enough for them, what is safe for them, what is stretch for them. And that's different for every single one of us. But yeah, none of us want to, be on our rocking chairs on the balcony going, "I wish I'd." That's probably the mantra, I think I hear there too. Anna, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast. It's been so lovely to
I
chat. I
know.
could
Thank you
carry
so
on.
much for
I could
having me. I've really
absolutely
enjoyed
carry on. Hardly remember we've got the record button going. Anyway, I'm just chatting away. So, where can people find you?
So
What's the best
best
way for
way
people
people
to
to find
find
us
you?
is Instagram. So it's at how about underscore AE. Parting message would be, gosh, do you know what? I think just say yes to everything in Dubai. I think if you're listening to this and you're new to Dubai or you're looking to kind of do more, just say yes to everything that comes your way.
Brilliant. Absolutely love that. I will put all of your links in the show notes. Now, I know that I have listeners that aren't in Dubai. I would still say go give Anna and how about a follow, because as her friend in the UK has already said, totally inspired to do her thing. And that's the other part about what Anna stands for and how about stands for. It's, yes, first and foremost, an incredible platform, clearly being creative, but community in Dubai. But everything it stands for is really inspirational. So,
Thank
Anna,
you.
thank you for joining me on the She Is Creative podcast. It's been an absolute
Thank you.
pleasure to have you here.